Hi, a very warm welcome to all of you. It is a wonderful day for all of us to be here for this webinar on managing your precious metals assets. This webinar shall last for 1 hour and it's now 12:30. We shall start so that we can actually end it on time, all right? Just to let you all have some ground rules, if you're using your mobile phone to view the webinar to better facilitate you in viewing the content, you can shift my face to the bottom right. If you are thinking that we are actually moving too fast, you can actually raise your hand through the raise hand icon at bottom. For any questions you have along the way, please feel free to just type it into the Q&A chat. We will do our best to address to all of them during the Q&A sections at the end. I see there are some more people coming in. For those who have just joined us, welcome. Hope you're ready for the webinar on managing your precious metals assets. Without further ado, let me just kickstart this. If you know, this year marks the 10th year anniversary for Gold Silver Central, who has grown extensively over the years as a regulated precious metals dealer and a member of the Singapore Bullion Market Associations. Gold Silver Central is also the only Perth Mint authorized distributor in the Southeast Asia. And it is our honor to have the Perth Mint here today with us for this webinar. Today, we will be covering on managing your precious metals assets and the Perth Mint's government guaranteed program. May I have a show of hands? How many of you has already gotten the various assets within your investment portfolio, such as the properties, bonds, shares, precious metals? You can click on the raise hand. I see some of you. Well done. Wow. That's good. Thank you for your response. For those who have had various assets in your portfolio, great job. For those who have not, you might start thinking about it after this webinar. See, most investors would like to spread out their investment to minimize the risk. Usually they call it the portfolio diversifications. However, how many of you has considered about the uncertainties and the stabilities of the locations where your assets reside in? For instances, those people who are in the Afghanistan who were desperately trying to flee the country had to worry about the withdrawal of their assets and carrying them along to flee. Wouldn't it be effortless if one has their assets diversified geographically? Well, I hope you will have more insights on how you can manage your precious metals asset locally and geographically after this webinar. Enough of me talking, and now let's hear from our first speaker, who has been in the industry for 6 years and has a keen insight on wealth management. He will be sharing with us on managing your precious metals assets. Let's welcome the Manager of Business Development in Gold Silver Central, Jason Ang.
Thanks, Suzanne, for the quick introduction. All right, afternoon, everyone. Jason over here. And before I begin, I'd like to just say that it's really humbling to be able to speak here together with Cameron and Jordan from Perth Mint. Really a great pleasure. I'll try and keep my segment short over here so that we can actually hear more from Cameron and Jordan. Right. So before we begin, just a very general disclaimer itself. Information here is meant for educational purposes only. Right, a little bit about Gold Silver Central. We're actually a regulated precious stones and precious metals dealer here in Singapore. We are authorized distributor of several partners, especially Perth Mint himself. We are also members of SBMA, Singapore Bullion Market Association. And in my 6 years here at Gold Silver Central, I've spoken to a lot of investors, retail investors, high net worth investors, or even hedge fund managers. And some of the familiar questions I have received is actually the 3 questions on the screen right now. First of all, should you be buying gold, silver, or should I be buying platinum itself? And the second question is, if I were to choose to buy gold, should I buy more Or should I buy more silver in fact? Or maybe even platinum in my portfolio? What should I get? How much should I get? And the last one is also, if I get this, is it safe? What's the purpose of a government guaranteed product even? Isn't gold decentralized? Can't I actually get gold anywhere else? I get it, I sell it somewhere else. So what is the purpose of government guarantee? All right, over here, I'll just leave this last question to the Perth Mint guys to answer. All right, and I'll just focus on the first two questions itself. And with familiar questions, of course, you also have very, very familiar answers. Yes, of course, you should get gold. You should have 10% of your portfolio in precious metals itself. Gold is a good portfolio diversifier. You should get it. So with all these familiar answers, I'd just like to take a pause and actually look at it really properly. And I would say that a prudent investor or even a responsible dealer should look at the particular risk appetite of the person who is buying the precious metals product. I'm sure all of us know that we all have different risk appetites that are very unique to ourselves, our financial situations. For example, a single individual versus someone who is married with two kids. The reason for the person who is married with two kids, the reason that he's investing is definitely very different from the single individual himself. Even the same product, uh, precious metals product, can actually apply to different risk appetites. For example, the gold dealer who is actually dealing with gold on a very daily basis, he's actually buying physical bullion as part of his inventory, as part of his business stock itself. Compare that to a gold investor who's actually buying physical bullion as a hedge against financial catastrophe. Their risk appetites, the things that they look at, the reason for even buying a physical bullion are very different in themselves. Over here, I actually have a chart of a very typical life journey of a retail investor. And I've broken it into three different segments itself: the accumulative phase, the consolidation phase, and the last one is actually the spending or the gifting phase itself. In the first phase, the accumulation phase, it speaks to young investors who actually just started out working. They don't have very long career time. They just started out. Their net worth is not so high as well, by no fault of their own. But this is also the time where they can actually take much higher level of risk. They don't have so much financial responsibilities. Time is also on their side. They can actually overcome more financial setbacks. As time progresses and you move on to the second consolidation phase itself, this is where you actually work for quite some time in your career itself. You actually accumulated some net worth. And this is also where you don't want so much volatility in your portfolio. You prefer a very stable dividend yielding, but at the same time, you don't mind having somewhat returns in your net worth. And the last phase is, of course, where you start to think about retirement. You start to think about, okay, I've actually worked this hard for majority of my life. What should I do now? How can I actually leave my legacy to my children, right? And this is where you actually start to spend your net worth itself. And this is also where your net worth starts going down. So these three different phases speak to a typical retail investor. Not saying that everyone follows this particular chart itself, but majority of us do. Most of us can actually relate to this. So how much precious metals should you have in your portfolio at each phase of life? If you were to bring this question to an investment advisory firm, their answer to you would depend on their guiding principle itself. Right now, a lot of investment advisory firms out there, they actually practice a very popular approach, which is the core satellite approach. This approach actually entails having a majority portion of your portfolio into a very core, stable part of it, right? Income, dividend yield, so on and so forth. So you talk about bonds, it could be even consisting of equity, depending on the investor himself. Right? And then the other part of it would be actually the satellite portion, where you start to look at thematic sectors itself. So it could be like biotechnology firms, it could be like healthcare firms, it could even be cryptocurrency firms also. And this is where you can actually vary the components depending on the personal investor himself. So this is actually a very popular approach for investment advisory firms out there right now. Here at Gold Silver Central, we tend to break our precious metals products into two very broad categories itself. Right? And we look at the purpose of the product. Are you looking to buy this precious metals product for a profit and loss? Meaning to say, are you looking for a certain percentage return at the end of 1 year, 2 years, or even at the end of 6 months? Are you looking for that profit itself? Or are you looking to buy this precious metals product as part of your asset balance sheet purpose? So like you want a store of wealth, you want for it to, you want your assets to have remain its purchasing power itself. So what is it that, what is the purpose that you're actually using this precious metals product for? And we've actually come up with a very general, very broad assumptions, portfolio allocation kit. Can I have a show of hands? Have you all seen this portfolio allocation kit yet? Just raise your hand if you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, you can scan the QR code right now, download it. It's free for everyone. No, no charges whatsoever. So you can just scan, download it. It's a very short 3-pager thing. And at the end of it, you can actually see this table over here. If it's too small, just scan the QR code, like I said. Right? And I want to draw your attention to this. What we've done is we've actually categorized into 3 very broad categories: aggressive, moderate, and safe products itself. And I have 2 points on this. The first point is that the same product can be used for different purposes. Earlier, I mentioned about the gold dealer who's buying physical inventory on a daily basis. He deals with physical inventory as part of his business. He's buying physical bullion for his business. The gold investor who's buying that same physical bullion, he's buying it for a totally different purpose altogether. It's not so much of a P&L. He's buying it as an asset balance sheet. He's hedging against the risk of a financial catastrophe. So very, very different risk appetite, but the same product itself. And the second point that I want to make over here is this, is that a safe product, like for example, the physical bullion, it can be coupled together with an aggressive product itself. The same gold dealer is buying physical bullion. He's actually hedging his exposure in the futures market itself. And that actually allows him to bring down the overall risk of his portfolio. So this is what I'm trying to say over here, is that no one product designed for one particular purpose can actually serve everyone's needs. How to answer the question of how much, should you buy gold, should you buy silver, or should you buy platinum? This is a question that actually we need to actually discover much more about yourself. Then we can go and answer that. So I implore you guys, fill up the portfolio allocation kit. Don't leave it there. Fill it up, bring it to one of us, talk to one of us. It could be a very short 30-minute discussion session itself. All right. Okay, and this one is pretty interesting. This article actually came up 2 days ago in the local Straits Times, Business Times, sorry, the local Business Times itself. And it talks about property prices in Singapore itself. In Singapore, we all know that property prices have been increasing. There's been a lot of talk about asset, property bubble, a lot of talks about this. And this article is very interesting because it actually goes further into detail and says, it says that property prices, yes, the increase in prices may be good for some of us, but it's unsustainable in the long term itself. And it brings in a lot of ratios, income mortgage ratios that we need to look at, which I think is pretty interesting. And the point here that I want to make using this article is this: what may work in the past may not actually work right now. So property may have worked for our parents or the 1960s age, or in the past, talk about 50 years ago. But right now, we need to actually really think about how are we going to allocate assets in our portfolio properly. Okay. So the second question that I mentioned earlier during the introduction itself is actually to decide how much gold, silver, or platinum should you buy in your portfolio. And one way to actually go about that, I would suggest, is to look at the correlation of the assets within your portfolio itself. Right? Correlation, for those of us who are unfamiliar, is simply a relationship between 2 asset classes. So the correlation of gold compared to silver, the correlation of silver compared to platinum, so on and so forth. Right. Over here, I actually have a chart from GoHub. It's an online resource. It's a very good website. They actually work very closely with World Gold Council. And what GoHub does is actually they have a lot of data research about gold prices, the history of gold, even the correlation of gold compared to other assets, data about gold. That is very, very useful. For those of us who are interested, I really implore you, go to GoHub, look at it, take a look at their resources. I think you actually have to have an account, but it's a free account anyway. Sign up and go and explore it. So I put this chart from GoHub itself. And what I did was I actually used Go as a base index and I brought in other asset classes to actually look at the correlation between gold and the particular asset class. So over here, I actually pull up silver and platinum, and it's highlighted in orange over here. And you can see the numbers itself. The correlation of gold to silver is 0.731. Gold to platinum is 0.547. So what do these figures mean? Well, these figures mean that for silver and for platinum, they actually have quite a high correlation to gold. Of course, this is over this whole span, I think from 1991 onwards to today. Right, so silver and platinum have quite a high correlation to gold itself. So for someone who is actually buying gold in his portfolio, or rather for someone who has gold in a portfolio and he's looking to buy silver as a so-called hedge against gold prices, he might want to actually reconsider that particular hedge itself. It may not work so well, right? Because of the high correlation for gold and silver. A lot of us have also heard about the saying, you should buy gold because gold is a good portfolio diversifier, is a good hedge in your portfolio. So what does that mean? And you can see it very clearly over here. If you look at the US cash, the US Treasury bills itself, they actually have very, very low correlation to gold. Talk about less than 0.03 even. That's actually a very low correlation. And what happens is this, when you actually have gold in your portfolio and you have US Treasury bills, for instance, in your portfolio, the low correlation between the two asset classes actually help to bring down the risk, the volatility in your portfolio itself. So this is why the saying out there where gold is actually a good portfolio diversifier, it is a good hedge against your current investments, it holds pretty well. At this point of time, I want to bring us to this very big elephant in the room. What about Bitcoin? A lot of people out there are saying Bitcoin is the new digital gold, it's going to take over gold, it will be the new gold. Don't buy gold, buy Bitcoin, right? And I actually put out this same chart from Gold Hub itself, right? It actually shows the correlation of Bitcoin with gold, and it's put from 2016 to 2021 to January 2021, right? And it shows the correlation over here. And pretty surprising is that there is actually a very low correlation of Bitcoin and gold itself, right? If you see over here, only in 2020 did Bitcoin cross above 0.5. So for someone who tells me that, hey, look, Bitcoin is very, very similar to gold, you know, they're acting in tandem, gold price goes up, Bitcoin goes up. Well, I'm looking at this chart and I'm thinking, that might not be so true actually. And even if you look at the later parts of 2020, when Bitcoin went above 0.5, it's been very erratic. Above 0.5, it went back down, even crossing over into the negative correlation range itself, right? This is actually also a survey that was done, and it actually shows the thinking of investors in Bitcoin and in gold. So all along, we know that gold is a very good wealth protector, is a very good wealth preservation asset itself. And this survey actually confirms that as well. A lot of people actually see gold as a very good wealth preservation tool. Compare that to Bitcoin itself. Right now, at this point of time, Bitcoin is still seen by a lot of people as a speculative investment. When I buy Bitcoin, it's not so much of a safe haven asset. It's much more that, you know, I want to go for some aggressive gains itself. So at this point of time, if people were to tell me Bitcoin and gold is very similar, I won't really say that. I won't really go that way. If you were to ask me to choose, would I hold Bitcoin or would I choose to hold gold? Well, the question I'll put to you is then, what is your risk appetite? What are you looking for in a portfolio? Is there possibility to hold both Bitcoin and gold itself? I leave that up to you to decide, right? So I just want to end off my sharing over here. If the past 10 minutes or 15 minutes have been too fast, I just want to leave you with this. Whenever you buy into a precious metals product itself, the key thing to do is to know yourself. Know the purpose that you are buying these precious metals for. Is it a profit and loss, or is it an asset balance sheet? Are you buying a Perth Mint Certificate Program for asset balance sheet or a profit purpose? Right? And of course, look at your risk appetite as well. We've actually written a quick article online. Can you sleep at night? Right? It's online. You can actually look at the link. I believe it's being shared in the chat group as well right now. And the whole premise is this. If you're buying into an asset and this asset drops by 5%, and it causes you to lose sleep at night. You can't sleep properly. You wake up at 3 a.m. and you think about it, oh no, I bought it, it's gone down by 5%, what should I do? Chances are you're actually taking on much more risk than you are comfortable with. That's a very generic test, very, very broad, right? And the last point that I want to make over here is this: work together with a trusted professional himself. I know this is the age of DIY. A lot of us, we stay at our homes. We don't even venture out so much. We like to do our investments on our mobile phone right now. But it doesn't mean that we can't make use of technology to turbo boost our learning curve itself. For me, myself, I don't know much about Bitcoin, honestly. I learned about Bitcoin from my mobile phone itself. So this is what I'm saying. Precious metals can also be learned through the mobile phone. I'll just leave you guys with this personal quote of mine. Once you stop learning, you start dying. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us a WhatsApp. You can drop us an email as well. Or you could even set up a virtual appointment, a very quick 30-minute session, one-to-one. We can actually go deeper into your precious metals portfolio itself. All right. With that, I end my sharing. Thank you very much. I'll hand the time back to Suzanne. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. You hear from Jason itself? It's really important to keep reminding yourself on what's your investment objective and always revisit your risk appetite. Like what Jason have shared, at every different phase of your life, you may actually have a little adjustment to your risk appetite. I have just tracked the basic portfolio kit, and well, I'm actually under the safe category. And most of the time I will wonder, how do we determine safe? Well, now this current pandemic situations, if we are able to hear that a country is a COVID-free country, to me is definitely a safe place to go to. We now shall have our next speaker from the COVID-free country. Yes, Western Australia is actually a COVID-free country. He will be sharing with us on how safe is the Perth Mint. Let's welcome an analyst for more than 25 years in the precious metals markets. We are privileged to have the manager of the Business Development and Industry Research Gold Corporations at the Perth Mint, Cameron Alexander. Cameron.
Thanks, Suzanne. That's terrific. And a warm welcome to everyone on the call today. It's a great pleasure for us from the Perth Mint to be involved in today's presentation. It really is. Thanks for the opportunity. So as discussed, my name is Cameron Alexander and I manage our business development here at Perth Mint, and I'm based here in Perth. So today, before handing over to Jordan, who's going to walk us through our investment products, I really wanted just to briefly provide some background information on the Perth Mint, which hopefully will be of interest to those on the call today, and lead to even greater confidence in dealing with our brand. Many of you listening today, oops, there I are, I've just lost some lights, excuse me. 2 seconds, I've got to, hope you can see me still. Goodness. Sorry, it's terrible. Right. Many of you listening today would know the Perth Mint brand because of our depository products and our range of small bars and coins found in the many retail outlets. But there's a lot more to our business that you may not be aware of, and that's why today I'd like to take that opportunity to run you through that. The Perth Mint opened its doors in 1899. So that's 122 years of continuous operation. Initially refining the gold of miners during the West Australian gold rush, going way back into, as I said, 1899. The business has grown exponentially over the years to where we are today, with an annual turnover last financial year in excess of 26 billion Australian dollars. Last financial year was a record year for the corporation, generating almost $56 million profit before tax. The Perth Mint is actually Western Australia's third largest exporter. Next slide, please. Next slide. That's it, terrific. The Perth Mint employs over 500 people across its 2 main sites. At the refinery itself, located near the Perth International Airport, and here in the city, which is where we house our coining division. The Perth Mint, importantly, is 100% owned by the Western Australian state government, which means your metal is fully protected against loss at all time, providing our customers with a level of comfort that is not matched really anywhere in the world. The obligation and liabilities, the Mint, including all precious metals held by the Perth Mint Depository in allocated, pool allocated and allocated storage accounts, is guaranteed by the Government of Western Australia under the Gold Corporation Act of 1987. Now, the Perth Mint has several core units of the business, which I will briefly touch on. Now, the refinery, as I mentioned, is one of the world's largest and is highly regarded. We think we are really in very high good company, the top 5 refiners globally, with the capacity to refine up to 800 tonnes of gold annually and up to 1,000 tonnes of silver. So it really is a significant operation. In reality, though, we slightly lower volumes than that. And last year we refined around 310 tonnes of gold through the refinery, which is around about almost 6 tonnes a week coming into the refinery from Australia mainly, but also with Southeast Asian producers that send their gold to the Perth Mint. And we also refined 370 tonnes of silver. Even at these levels, the Perth Mint processed around 10% of the global world production of gold. We refine close to 83% of the Australian gold doré production and around 70% of what is totally refined within Australia, which includes scrap gold. Now, the Perth Mint is the only refinery in Australia with the LBMA accreditation for both gold and silver, and accredited to trade on all the major metal exchanges, including the LBMA, as I said, in London, COMEX in the United States, Shanghai Gold Exchange, or SGE, which is based in China, and TOCOM in Japan, and the DMCC in Dubai. So we are able to trade on all those exchanges. Our range of minted products, which I'm sure people on the call today are very familiar with, hit sales volume last year of over 20 tonnes last year in terms of gold, and over 500 tonnes of silver, with a value of almost $3.5 billion. Our Treasury Department, which is the team I work for, so we sell gold to our wholesale markets, and we work very closely with the larger bullion banks who are operational in the marketplace. This year, demand has been led by China. We've seen significant demand in 2020 from China, who last year during the COVID year were almost completely absent from the market, as was India last year. So we have seen a significant uptick in demand from China, and that's taking a significant portion of what we are producing here at the Perth Mint. And that's really just on the wholesale, on the actual wholesale front itself, and that's slightly different from the minted products that we produce. Perth Mint has over 60,000 depository clients. 60,000 depository clients using our range of products that Jordan will shortly outline. And we are storing almost $6 billion worth of precious metals on behalf of our clients at our state-of-the-art vaults here in Perth at the refinery. One final business unit, which is probably worth highlighting, is our Perth Mint shop and exhibition. It really has become one of Perth's most must-see attractions, showcasing gold's extraordinary history in Australia, a superb collection of gold nuggets and specimens, a live gold pour, and our 1 tonne pure gold coin, which is on display daily. Last year, in COVID year, we still had over 12,000 visitors through the exhibition, which is quite extraordinary. So when the world opens up and we can once again travel, I would certainly recommend that you come on down and see the shop and exhibition while you're here in Perth. Look, I know it's a lot to take in, but I hope it has provided you with some idea of what we do outside of the products that you may see from your interactions in Singapore. But as you can see, we are a multifaceted company, and one that is continuing to expand and set new benchmarks across the industry. So with that, I'll pass it back to Suzanne and ahead of Jordan talking us through the investment products. And I'll be very happy to take any questions that we may have at the end of the presentations. So back to you, Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. It's great to know so much more about the Perth Mint itself. And you see, being a COVID-free country, it gives you really good business. Why? Because while other countries is having a problem with handling the COVID and having their productions of business to realign to ensure the manpower is split in half and all that, well, the Perth Mint itself don't really have that problem, and they continue to produce so many tons of gold and silver and stuff. This is amazing. And the rigorous audit managed by the Western Australia state. It's really safe, I would say. Thank you, Cameron. And after knowing so much about the Perth Mint itself, I guess we are all excited to know more about the government guaranteed programs. Let's welcome our next speaker, who is a financial markets commentator and a precious metals expert for more than 20 years of experience in several large financial organizations. The manager of listed products and investment research at the Perth Mint, Jordan Elisu. Jordan, please.
Thank you, Suzanne. I hope everyone can hear me and I've come off mute correctly. I appreciate the warm introduction and echo Cameron's welcome to everyone that's taken the time to join us for this webinar today. It's a huge honour for us at the Mint to be a part of this. So as Suzanne alluded to, I've been in the industry for the better part of 25 years now across sort of financial services and precious metals specifically. And my role at the Perth Mint is, I suppose, there's a couple of main areas to it. One is investment research, so regular market commentary on what is driving precious metal prices and driving investors towards precious metals in their portfolios today. And with a specific product remit that looks at our listed products. And our listed products are one of the several arms of the Perth Mint Depository, which we offer to clients either directly or via distributors as well, who are obviously located around the world. So that's probably a good segue to the next slide, if we can, Suzanne. So as the slide suggests, the Perth Mint Depository effectively allows investors, irrespective of where they are on the globe, to purchase, invest, and eventually sell as well, gold, silver, and platinum, without the need to take physical delivery of those metals and store them yourself. So we effectively act as a trading partner whenever a client wants to buy or sell, and we provide the custodial service for investors for the duration that they're holding those investments. Our investments with the Perth Mint Depository are fully backed by physical precious metals that are safely stored in our central bank grade vaults in Western Australia. And as I alluded to earlier, there are several ways that investors can access the Perth Mint Depository. So investors in Australia can access the Perth Mint Depository via our listed products, which is the area that I look at. We also offer a product called Gold Pass, which is effectively a mobile trading app to buy and sell gold and silver directly. And then the two elements to our depository program, which are probably the most relevant for the audience today, are what we call our certificate program, as well as our depository distributor online program. So if we can flick to the next slide, I'll talk through those a little bit as well. Yeah, great. So the Perth Mint Certificate Program is effectively the longest running depository program that the Perth Mint has been providing to clients. It sort of predates the internet, it predates web-based trading, and indeed even phone-based trading, I believe, has a history that dates back many decades now, and is one of the first ways, as I say, that investors, irrespective of where they are located on the globe, have been able to buy and sell precious metals that are custodied and held with the Perth Mint. And as the slide there indicates, clients receive a certificate that's actually issued by the Perth Mint, which will detail the amount and type of precious metals held. So for example, the number of ounces of gold or silver that you have purchased through the program. it's very, very suitable and really ideally placed for investors who prefer the convenience and like the personal touch of dealing with a local specialist who can help facilitate not only opening an account with the Perth Mint, but obviously the purchasing process and eventual resale in due course. So as I say, it is by far the longest running program that we've offered in the Perth Mint Depository. And it has customers from all around the world that access the depository via the certificate program, even up until this day. Moving along, I suppose the kind of technological plane, as it were, and obviously as the way investors have accessed really all assets, not just precious metals, we at the Perth Mint have always been looking for new ways, more innovative ways to deliver access to precious metals to clients, either directly or via distributors. And so the next solution, which is probably highly relevant, is what we call our Depository Distributor Online Program, or PMDDO. So if we move on to the next slide, I'll talk through that for a minute. And as the name suggests, with Depository Distributor Online, this is a 24/7 marketplace for buying gold, silver, and platinum. So you as an investor can basically log in and access the market at your convenience, whenever suits you in terms of the time of the day that you want to trade. And you can obviously also have the benefit of being able to monitor portfolios in real time as well, because you have that direct access to the market as well. So this was launched a few years ago and is becoming an increasingly more popular way of people accessing precious metals through the Perth Mint, very simply because it sort of puts control and the ability to transact as well as monitor your portfolio online 24/7 at your own convenience. Irrespective of whether you're using PMDDO or whether you're using the certificate program, or indeed people that are coming to us directly, ultimately underpinning all of our depository offerings is the security of dealing with the Perth Mint as an institution. So obviously, as Cameron alluded to in his presentation, as an organisation, we have been around for well over a century now. We turn over or refine, over $25 billion worth of precious metals every year, and we custody and already deal with well over 50,000 clients who are located all around the globe. So whilst ultimately the depository has different access points to allow people to engage with the Perth Mint, that underlying security of who you're dealing with is one of the reasons, or indeed, the primary reason why we've been able to grow as fast as we have and as strongly as we have. Because, ultimately, when it comes to precious metals, it's not just the security of the asset that matters, it's the security of the counterparty that you're dealing with. And we think that for a variety of reasons, which we've discussed in this presentation so far, we really stand above the pack in terms of our security as a counterparty. And I think fundamental to that, there's a couple of key points that I'll add. Maybe we can move to the next slide, Suzanne, to talk through that. Fundamental to that, there's a couple of things. One is very simply the geopolitical stability. So we're obviously located and headquartered in Western Australia, one of the most remote, safe, secure locations on the globe. And the fact that the gold and silver that people invest in is stored in WA adds a peace of mind that is not necessarily there if you're dealing with metals that are custodied in other locations. Even more though than the geopolitical stability, and again, Suzanne, if we can move to the next slide, is the government guarantee, which we see very much as being the icing and the cherry on the cake in terms of the security that we offer and why we are, in our view, the premier counterparty to deal with when investing in precious metals. So just to give a little bit more flavour on that, or a little bit more background, again, as Cameron alluded to, the Perth Mint, we're solely owned by the Government of Western Australia, which is a AA+ rated sovereign entity. They are our only shareholder. And all of our operations, undertakings and obligations to our clients, to investors that use the depository, are explicitly guaranteed. I'll repeat, explicitly guaranteed by the Western Australian Government under the Gold Corporation Act of 1987. And that exclusive guarantee allows us to pass on additional certainty gained from the knowledge that there's a highly rated sovereign entity fully underwriting all of our offerings. So not only is there that 120-year history, not only is there that very large balance sheet, the $25 billion of turnover, the 60,000 clients, the several billion dollars worth of metal that we already custody for those clients. There's that on top of all of that, you've then got this government guarantee underpinning the whole thing. And that is why, as I say, to reiterate, from a security and a counterparty perspective, we think the Perth Mint stands head and shoulders above the competition as an entity to feel comfortable doing business with. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you, Jordan. Isn't that very insightful? That's mind-blowing programs that the Perth Mint is offering to us. It's secure, affordable, flexible, and it's the only government guaranteed programs, like what Jordan has shared with us. I have seen a few questions in the Q&A sessions. We have about 15 minutes for the Q&A sessions now. Let's go through the questions, panelists. First questions. Okay, we have a first question here is, what is good precious metals portfolio? Jason, would you like to share with us on this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Suzanne. Good precious metals portfolio. Well, I guess we have to break that question down into several parts. The very familiar answer that we have on the line is, look, you can buy gold, silver, platinum in a ratio 60-20-20. But to me personally, I don't think that that's a very accurate description. Rather, a more accurate description would be to look at the risk portfolio itself, the risk of your portfolio. Are you buying the gold for a profit, or are you buying the gold to put as your asset balance sheet? And even so itself, if you're buying gold as a profit, should you be looking at poor allocated? Should you be looking at physical bullion? Should you be looking at numismatics even? Or even Perth Mint Certificate Program also? I believe Perth Mint Certificate Program does offer us, based on what Jordan has just shared as well, it does offer us some further value-added aspects of the product. So is that something that you need in your portfolio itself? So I guess to really answer your question, what is a good precious metals portfolio? I think I have to actually understand more about you, a little bit more about your objective. Then we can actually answer that question more proper. If not, it's going to be a very generic answer like, yeah, you should buy gold. Gold is good, which is not something that I think Gold Silver Central or Perth Mint actually wants to go that route. Yeah, Jordan, perhaps you have something to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll just unmute myself there, Jason. Yeah, look, I think you're right. It's a very personal thing in terms of what ultimately drives a good precious metal portfolio for each and every investor. Gold and silver have obviously a lot of similarities, but there are some key differences as well. So, if it's predominantly about wanting to, hedge some risk against volatile equity markets, well, you'd probably be more tilted towards gold. If volatility was less of a problem and you had a longer time frame than something like silver, which has traditionally been a little bit more volatile, that would be less of a problem. Whereas if you were very worried about volatility, then you'd be your percentage allocation to silver, all other things would be a little bit lower. So yeah, look, those are just some of the factors that would drive, ultimately what a good precious metal portfolio for each individual ends up looking like.
Yep, totally agree.
Thank you, Jason and Jordan. I just realized it's a J and J. So, well, ultimately, I guess investors yourself, you need to know your objective of it and also the risk appetite in order for us to actually share with you more. I guess it's time for you to do the basic portfolio kit that Jason have shared. We have the next questions here. Can we do Perth Mint depository scheme with silver, I guess the questions is trying to ask, do the Perth Mint provide the silver and the various depository services? Jordan?
Yeah, that's a very quick and easy one to answer, Suzanne. The answer is yes, you can get silver through the depository as well. It's not just gold.
Yes. Jordan has mentioned earlier on, it's actually for gold, silver, and platinum itself. So the next question is, if we join the PMDDO through Gold Silver Central, will we also pay additional distributor costs for their help in Singapore? Example, beside the transactional costs. Jordan?
Additional costs relative to dealing with us directly?
I guess what the customers is referring to is, if it's dealing with Gold Silver Central, is there any additional costs compared to this? So based on this, I guess for PMDDO itself is pretty transparent. Right, Jason? Because based on what Gold Silver Central has listed for PMDDO itself, there is only the transactional cost incurred. Am I right?
Yep. In fact, we actually have a section on the website itself, Gold Silver Central website. You can also even look up this information on Perth Mint website itself.
Yes, exactly. On Gold Silver Central website itself, we actually have the PMDDO tab where it shows the cost incurred. So there isn't any additional cost other than the transactional fee, or rather any other information that you require is actually on the link that we have just shared in the chat itself. Okay, we have another question, which is more related to the Perth Mint itself. Where do you see this market going, especially in the light of the digital assets? Cameron or Jordan, would you all like to take on?
I'll have a swing at that one. Thank you very much. If I think we're just talking, markets generally. I think the market, investment market's going to remain very strong. I think for precious metals going forward, certainly in the interim. We're not able to provide sort of forecast advice where we think the gold price might be moving or silver price, but I think it's fair to say that it's very supportive of precious metals at the moment going forward. Certainly from what we're seeing in terms of demand for our products, investment products, we are seeing very solid demand. So I think the expectation in the market is that the current macroeconomic situation is being quite supportive for the metal. If you think about what the new products coming on stream over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of digital products come on into the market. Not all of them have been successful. I think it's fair to say. I think there's been a lot that have come on that don't have liquidity, and some places like in China, for example, the government has stepped in to close a lot of these options down. So you really need to know who you're dealing with and have confidence in who you're dealing with, and it comes back to the whole thing about your risk exposure. I think what we've seen over the last few years as well is that it's the younger generations that are willing to move into these new products. And that's really, I don't think it's really cannibalizing the traditional gold market and gold investment market per se. I think what it's doing is actually bringing in new investors into this marketplace, which is actually a good thing. So I think we certainly welcome the implementation of these new products. I think it's, I think if you go back to, again, 2 years ago, I think there was a real rush of these new products. And I think over that time, we've seen a few of those dwindle away and the stronger ones have remained. It's the younger generations that are very much more, I guess, internet savvy and are more aware of these kind of products. And particularly, they're very attracted to being operating on their phone. These days, younger generations spend most of their time on their phones, it seems. So, I think there's definitely a space for this type of market. And, I think, Jason, you mentioned as well about in terms of Bitcoin. I think all these kind of investment products can operate in the one space without actually cannibalizing each area. So I think that's the market is progressing into that way, but I don't think we're going to see a significant decline in the traditional style of investment. And I think if you look at, I mentioned generational shift. I think Certainly the Asia, the older investors across Asia have very much into the physical space. And I think if you grew up with your parents owning physical gold and sort of really instilling into you, that was a very important way of protecting your assets, is by holding physical gold. I think it's going to take another generation or two before that really changes, and our new generations move across to non-physical gold. But what we're seeing still, and from what we're hearing across Asia, is that the physical market is still very strong, and those who are willing to move across to someone storing the gold on their behalf, like a certificate program, for example, they need to have absolute confidence in who they're dealing with, because it does come down to the risk appetite. Jordan, you may have something to add there.
Yeah, look, just echo. I agree with what you're saying 100%, Cameron. And I suppose, yeah, maybe to add to it a little bit, in many ways, the rise of, whether we call it alternative currencies, crypto, Jason spoke about Bitcoin a little bit as well. If anything, I actually see it as being supportive of gold demand over the medium to long run for a handful of reasons. One, it's very important to recognize, if you were to break down the sort of global pool of investable wealth, really only 2 or 3% of it is in gold or crypto at all right now, which means 96, 97% of it is in traditional assets like stocks, bonds, cash, etc. So in as much as cryptocurrencies and digital assets are helping people think about alternative storeholds of wealth, that's actually good for gold anyway, especially given how often they're marketed as gold itself or forms of gold. So it's seeding in the next generation the importance of sort of thinking outside the square a little bit when it comes to creating wealth, and also then as well, and we see this all the time. Obviously, there's enormous volatility in digital assets, cryptocurrency, you name it. So they do not have the safe haven status that gold does and silver does right now. But let's also acknowledge that some people have made very good wealth in that space. So what happens after they've made wealth? Well, then their mind turns to preserving that wealth. And when their mind turns to preserving that wealth, what comes straight to the top of mind? It's precious metals again. So in that sense, I actually see the rise of digital assets on balance as actually being supportive of gold and precious metal demand broadly over the medium to long term.
Great, such an in-depth sharings about it, and we actually see that most of the people, like you all have mentioned multiple times, that the younger generations and nowadays people are moving more towards the digital aspect of it. Like the mobile phone is always on your hands, and you're always using it to do to view or to read stuff. What do you think about the various, like if you were to buy into the digital certificates itself, or buying through ETF itself, comparing to buying a physical? Is there any difference, or is there any particular reasons of which is better?
I'll have a stab there if you guys are happy for me to kickstart. Look, I think my view on it, Suzanne, is that ultimately gold itself, in terms of the price on a day-to-day basis, it's very easy to track and to see what's happening with it. And most gold products, irrespective of whether it's a coin, a depository program, an ETF, a digital gold certificate, they will all probably do a pretty good job of tracking the gold price up and down. What ultimately matters, though, and we talked about this in the presentation, is who is the issuer of that product, and who is the counterparty that you're dealing with. And so in particular, if you look at, we can't speak of the specifics of other digital currency or gold certificates or the like, but the thing that I would say to any potential investor is make sure you understand the counterparty that you're dealing with, because in many cases, they won't have the track record, they won't have the governance, they won't have the liquidity, they won't have the risk management around the underlying product itself. So yes, they might have something that looks shiny and it might look like it goes up and down with the gold price very nicely, but that's not the only thing that matters when it comes to allocating to gold. It's who's the counterparty that's standing on the other side of the trade. And that's why working with people like yourselves and ultimately working with people like us at the Perth Mint is the safer way to do it for the vast majority of investors in most circumstances.
Thank you, Jordan. Well said. It's really about doing your homework well, finding out who are the people who are behind all these programs and who is the one that is issuing all these products for you. Ensure that everything is safe for yourself. Okay, I think it's pretty good. It's 1:25 now. I will do a little summary of what we have actually shared today. We have actually gone through the managing of your precious metals assets, the ratio of each asset depending on your risk appetite and your own objective itself. All holdings in the Perth Mint are all backed by the physical, and you are able to collect them or even deliver them to your place. As we mentioned earlier as well, for the unallocated holdings and the Perth Mint programs have no storage charges, which means that there isn't any maintenance cost incurred if you were to store for a long years. And the government guaranteed programs, it's such an awesome product itself because it covers the liabilities of the Perth Mint Depository, which is placed under the Gold Corporation Act 1987. This means that the payment of cash equivalent of the precious metals due, payable, and deliverables by the Mint is guaranteed. It is our privilege to have Cameron and Jordan from the Perth Mint to be here with us today. Now, as we come to the end of this webinar itself, I do have some treats for all of you who have joined us today. It's the good news to share with you that the Perth Mint have just told me they would like to offer 50% off all the transactions fee for any new PMDDO account open from now all the way to the 30th of November 2021. If you have not signed up for the PMDDO itself, remember to sign up now because you get 50% off. And just to give you a little bit information, the PMDDO transactions fee, the highest transactions fee itself is actually 1%. And if it's 50%, it means 0.5%, right? So in the normal situations, you need to spend 250,000 worth of transactions amount in order to get this 0.5% transactions fee. But now, spending less than $10,000, you are already able to receive this 0.5% transaction fee. It's a huge savings for you. So if you have not and you're considering, do join us, and our PMDDO link will be shared in the chat for you. Now, not only the Perth Mint is offering you something, the GSC is also offering you something. We are having some promotions on the Perth Mint coins itself. If you would like to take a look on the coins, because the Perth Mint creates so many different kinds of coins, and what are the coins that's available for you in these promotions, refer to our promotion page, which will be shared to you in the chat as well. You can just click on the link to view through the coins that you would like to get. With all that we have over here, I would like to thank all of you to be here with us this afternoon, and hope all this while the information shared with you is good for you and you do bring home some information, and how do you decide what is safe for you and what is good for your portfolio. For the questions that we have yet to be answered, forgive us due to the time constraint. We will send an email to all of you with regards to the questions and follow up with our answers to your questions. So don't worry, we will still answer your questions. Thank you, everybody, and we shall end the webinar now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks,
Everybody,
Jordan.
thank you very much.